It's that time once again, press fans, coming to you from Altman Studios in downtown Brentwood to your ears wherever you are. This is Clocked In with the Press. As always, I'm Jake Jimenez. Joining me today is editor/sports guru Kyle Szymanski to join me in conversation with Vincent Baldwin of East County Revolution FC. Kyle, Vincent, how are you guys doing today?
Doing
Pretty
great.
good. How about yourself?
Great, thank you. Before we get into it, let's get a quick word from today's sponsor.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Sip & Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip & Scoop delivers smiles for miles, sip by sip and scoop by scoop. Gelato, Italian ice, and signature coffee beverages are just a few of the delicious treats on their menu. Stop by Sip & Scoop at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood to get your fix. They're also on DoorDash.
All right, and thank you very much to our sponsor. So, Vincent, why don't you go ahead and kind of tell us what the East County Revolution is all about?
Certainly. So we're our youth soccer club. Just like any other sports leagues around the city, around the area, what we have to offer is from all the way from youngest 2-3 years old all the way up to adults. So you'll find that we have various soccer programs for mainly for our youth, for between again 2 and 18 years old. And the cost varies depending on the program you enter, but we're most known for our competitive soccer program, where it's a year-round program. Soccer's played, little do people know, all year long, even in December. We are playing soccer. So I'm glad you guys are having me come in and talk about this.
And so how long has East County Revolution been an organization? How long has this organization existed in its current state?
Right. So very, very short amount of time, since March. So we've just started our newest season and have started playing soccer under our new name.
How many kids are currently enrolled in the program?
Yeah, so overall we have about 1,800 kids right now. We can definitely get into the more details about our different programs.
And that is 1,800 kids is a huge endeavor, obviously. What is the geographic area that covers?
So we are mainly known for our Brentwood area, but actually part of our name, East County, goes into East County, Contra Costa County. So we cover Oakley, all the way out to Discovery Bay.
Fantastic. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the merger? It's a merger of two groups, right?
Right. So I don't know if a lot of people know that there were two soccer clubs here in Brentwood for the last 10 years. And I come from one of those soccer clubs, and one of the questions we always hear from parents, why are there two soccer clubs in Brentwood? And, you get into, well, because we did this, and they did this differently, and this and that. And it got to a point where both clubs, there was a lot of history between the two clubs, but the boards of both clubs have changed. And the dynamics of our area have changed. The economy has changed. So it kind of made sense for us to get together.
Those two previous clubs were Impact and Ajax, right?
Right. Impact Soccer Club, established in 1982. Ajax East Bay Soccer Club, established in 2011.
And so in those two clubs, in the previous incarnations of those, what was the difference between the two?
Oh, wow. Put me on the spot there. Both clubs were endeavoring to do the same thing, to put as many players onto the soccer field. So be it in our recreational programs, in our academy, usually those are for the youngsters or for the competitive programs.
All right. And kind of tell me, what's the benefit to merging, I guess?
Like anything, it's like two heads are better than one, or we're merging, right? So for us, we immediately what we saw was we have more resources at our disposal. One of the main things for most soccer clubs is finding fields. And in Brentwood, we were all fighting for the same fields, as far as baseball is fighting for those fields, and football, and say in Oakley. So immediately we saw that. We saw that we could merge teams. We have strong players in both clubs. We thought that we could find combined teams, be able to compete better. Coaches, and just overall, just combine those resources.
How many fields are there, off the top of your head, are there in Brentwood that you guys were fighting over?
Well, there are probably, I would say, like 5 or 6 fields. Now, when I say fields, it depends on where you are. So if you're talking about Sunset Sports Complex, there are 4 soccer fields ready to go right now. And during our October Boo Fest, we actually open up and go into the baseball fields and put soccer fields on there as well. It's kind of interesting. You don't know, but throughout Brentwood, there are multiple fields. Near Heritage High School, you've got Balfour Guthrie, you've got Oak Meadows in that same area. You've got Guerin next to the Guerin Elementary School. And these are all where you have to pay to have these teams play or train on those fields.
And so just for perspective, you said there's about 1,800 kids playing soccer locally. Let's say 6 fields there without the coordination of being under one umbrella. That obviously leads to a lot of butting heads just trying to find space.
Well, it can, but the city of Brentwood does have, and like other cities, they have they call a field or draft day. So multiple youth organizations come together and they bid or not bid, but they kind of pick certain days. So one year you could have Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The next year you have Monday and Tuesday. The next year you might not have that particular section of the field. So it's always a challenge in that regard.
And, when there's two organizations in one community, I can imagine there's kind of probably a sense of rivalry, if you will, not necessarily a bitter rivalry, but just some kind of bragging rights. Did it take some convincing for you guys to come together and merge?
Well, yeah, it's from the kids, from the parents, from the coaches, even from us on the board. We've heard a lot about the other club, right? And it's funny, once we got into the same room and we started talking about our vision, what we wanted for the kids, what we wanted for the community, it was the same thing. Maybe we're going about it a little differently, right? But it was the same thing. So, just like a couple marrying, you don't know that other person until you're living with them. And that's the same thing when you're merging an organization. You don't know until, oh, that's what you meant. Okay. That rivalry, it's there. But, again, the intent now is to say, what is a revolution way? Because moving forward, that's what we need, for this community to have this one club providing these services to the kids and to the youth in this area.
Logistically, when it came to merging the two clubs, how was it determined who would, you were the president of one of the previous organizations, you're the president of the current organization. How was the hierarchy kind of determined as part of the merger?
My previous role in the old club, I was an operations director. So I was not the president. And yes, that was a big point of discussion when we first got together, got in a room. We had a merger committee, 4 board members from both clubs. We met over a period of 6 to 8 months. Started back in fact, around this time, July of last year, we had our very first meeting. Well, what do you think? Well, yes. And then it expanded from there. So a lot of thought went into, well, how do we do this, right? And for those who don't know, in youth soccer, most clubs have what's called a director of coaching. And that individual is a paid position. Unlike the board members are typically volunteers, but this paid position is meant to oversee the coaches, hire coaches, make sure they're being trained, make sure that the training program is being adhered to. So we had 2 directors of coaching. So that was a challenge, So, well, who's going to be the director of coaching? There's been other mergers in this area where we've seen that didn't work out because of that very fact. So we were very careful to have that conversation up front and come to terms with that.
And so that conversation ends obviously with you as president, like we had said, but let's zoom out a little bit. Let's go back in time and let's hear more about Vincent, prior to the soccer club. So how did you first get involved with youth soccer programs?
So for most parents, it all starts with your child saying, I want to do that. And I had, to be honest, no clue what soccer was. I played it, but I did not play it as a child. So it was starting in rec. And recreational soccer is most people's first introduction to soccer. It's a short season, 10 games. The intent is everyone plays. There's equal playing time for everybody. You usually have parent volunteer coaches. And so you get your first exposure to soccer. So once you get to that, okay, my daughter in this case, you're doing really well. Where do you want to go with this? I want to play comp. And comp as in competitive soccer. And so that's where you pony up some money and a lot of your time. And for parents, it's a lot of time. And, I always say for those folks who are interested in this is it's got to be for your kid. I mean, they have to want this because you don't want to have to keep dragging your child to because trainings are 3 times a week. Games could be as early as 8 o'clock in the morning, as late as 8 o'clock at night. And so they have to want it, right? So that is something that we had to do, make sure that was up front. So once you're in the soccer world, you're exposed to a whole lot. You never knew this was going on. You're driving around town, you see some game happening on the field. Okay, that's nice. But now you're there. You're a parent on the sideline, right? Or you're that coach or the referee now. So it's a whole new world that's happening right in front of our very eyes.
And so how old was your daughter when she decided she wanted to play soccer?
Oh boy. Now you're gonna get me here. So I do know she was in fifth grade. I do know that. Or probably fourth grade when she started. So you'll find that most kids, even then in fourth grade, that's considered late in competitive soccer. A lot of kids do start as soon as they're 5, right? But I think, for most parents will say it doesn't matter. Just as long as the child enjoys it and is able to be coachable, come on in, right? And just because we had tryouts in May doesn't mean you can't join today, right? Just go online, revolutionfc.org, and you can find information on how to have your child evaluated for play.
Has your daughter stuck with soccer?
Yes. She loves the sport. There have been all kind of challenges, but I think that's what sport does bring up is these life lessons. And for children, especially in this day and age where we've had to deal with so much, having something that they can consistently go to and see the benefit, right? And when she first started, she's kicking with her toe. Now she's able to kind of kick and with power and at speed. So seeing that progression and seeing that in the other kids around them, right? That's just an awesome thing.
So your daughter joins the soccer club, and you are someone who doesn't have much experience with soccer at the time. So what was the path that led you from involved parent to now someone running the show?
It's funny because most board members will say that they didn't intend to join the board. It's always somebody says, "Hey, could you help us with something?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm a nice person. I'm engaged, yeah." And I did the same thing where, yeah. And then all of a sudden you could end up doing this on the board or this activity, running fundraisers. I've done all kind of things in my stint, and I've done this for probably this will be my 5th year on the board.
And what was the biggest growing pain for you going, as you were learning this, as you were learning soccer, essentially?
Right. So, the soccer part is one thing. I think, the organization itself has a different speed. Coming from the business world, you're used to things happening at a certain pace. And so now you're talking about a voluntary organization, and that pace depends on when that next person is available, right? So learning that. The fun part is being on the field, watching your child play. And that's the easy part, and I quickly learned not to say, well, you need to go do this. No, Dad, that's not what I do. Nah. I said, okay, all right. So I stopped doing that. I'm not, not the one who's coaching on the side because I'm going to get looked at and it's not going to be pretty. But I think from the board perspective, and that's what's fun about it because you don't need experience in the game or experience in the organization to make a valuable contribution to a club.
So for parents that are interested in getting their kids in soccer, or maybe if the kids don't express interest, let you say they start out at as young as 5, kind of, what's your advice for them?
Well, again, at any point, we all know that you're your own child, right? In terms of they say they want to do this, and they see their friend who's on the competitive team. Yeah, I want to do that. Well, with that comes costs, right? Because it's not just the registration fees, it's the cleats. And oh my gosh, I've learned so much about soccer cleats, let me tell you. I'm a mini expert on that. But it's also the time commitment. So I would say that no matter what age they are, it's investing in them, right? Do you want this? And let me help you with that, right? And I think that's what I found so rewarding in this journey is that I'm being taught stuff that I didn't know, right? My child is teaching me things I didn't know. And she gets to say, let me tell you something, Dad. Let me tell you this, right? And so that's rewarding as a parent to see that, right? And I think I would love for more, if it's not soccer, it's basketball, whatever sport, at a competitive level, I think it's rewarding for both parent and child.
And I want to flip that on its head a little bit. I was going to ask, what do you think is a parent's role when the child's pursuing athletics? What is a parent's role in helping them navigate that? Just because we've all known someone, I'm sure, whose parents were maybe pushed a little too hard, and there was some resentment involved.
It's interesting when you see it on the soccer field, be it in the recreational league or in the competitive league. It's a whole spectrum of parents, those who are really quiet and those who are just really loud. They're calling maneuvers and things they got to do. And you're like, no, no. I mean, okay. And then there's that further extreme where they become confrontational with other parents or the referees. And I've been involved in those situations, right? Where the police have to be called. Had a situation where one parent was so upset with the referee's call, and this referee was a teenager, ran up to the teenager on the field and continued to just cuss that player out. And that's when that's gone too far. And so as a club, we make it a point that, and you'll see our Instagram feed where we're saying, hey, we're preparing for a recreational league starting tomorrow. And we're giving them pointers as parents. Please, just be positive, right? Don't talk to the refs. This is not the professional leagues, okay? And just encourage your child. And that's the best thing.
So the cliche of the soccer parent is something with a little bit of truth to it.
Oh, yes, it is true. It is very true. You could go on YouTube right now and find a whole host of videos of parents gone wild on a soccer field. It is sad, very sad.
Do you think there's a one-size-fits-all approach to, as a parent, to nurturing a child's interest in a sport? Is there a certain level of involvement that you feel is right, or does it vary from child to child?
Yeah, I would say it varies, right? I mean, we've all seen the case of Tiger Woods and his father, right? Super engaged, or Williams and the Williams sister, super engaged. I'm not that parent, I don't have those skills to convey to my child, here's how you're going to kick the perfect ball. I don't. But what we can do is, find that path, right? For my daughter and I, it's about maybe working out together, right? Hey, you be my accountability partner. I need to work out. You need to work out? Great. So it does vary. But I also think that's where the parents can engage with the coach. Hey, not in the sense of, hey, how can my daughter or son get more playing time? That's the worst. That comes up a lot, especially in competitive sports, because you're paying and then you see your child not playing. And most of the times it begins during training. What is your child in training doing what they need to do, right? So engage in a coach. And that's what we say that in competitive soccer, it's the coach, the parent, and the child. That's the connection there, right? And then as they get older, it's more the coach and the child.
Yeah, so for parents who are, considering joining your club, what would you say some of the benefits are of joining this club over another one?
Of course, right? We're the best club ever, right? I always say that pick what's best for you. And I think what we are trying to offer this community is a positive environment, the ability to play in multiple levels of competition. And then really it's how can we get the most out of the kid? And there are various routes that one can take. In competitive soccer, not only are you playing in the team at your age group, that same player could find opportunity to play at an older age group because of their skill level. In soccer, there's this concept of first, second, third team. So depending on the age group you have, it's a 7v7, 9v9, or 11v11. So we may have a whole bunch of kids, more than enough for one team. We might have 1, 2, or 3 teams. So depending on that player who finds themselves on a third team, oh man, I'm on a third team. Well, don't worry about that, we say, because you show up to training, you bring it, you go to the game, you bring it, and then it's like, oh, well, let's bring in a second team. Let's bring in a first team, right? And I think a lot of parents get stuck in that, oh, my kid's not on the first team, because and that's the thing about in competitive soccer, it's one of those weird dynamics of a first team and second team. It's comparable, I guess, to a first string and second string, but it's more pronounced and it's more visible because you see, oh, well, the first team is going to that tournament, or they're getting to play in this higher league, and we're down here. And it's not about that. It is about, for that particular player, what are you doing right now to get the best? So you can go to that next level, maybe the first team, or maybe an age group higher. Who knows?
A question that I love to ask when we have people on here that work with kids is the club obviously teaching kids soccer, but what life lessons are they learning along the way? Because it's, everything learned on the field isn't applicable just to the field, obviously.
I think it's personal responsibility, and accountability because once you go from recreational soccer where it is you show up, you play the game, you get the orange slices at halftime, which we always joke, you don't get that anymore when you get into, it's all about the orange slices, right? But once you get into competitive soccer, the players are being asked to train on your own. Learn how to juggle the ball. Learn how to get what they call touches on the ball, where you have to keep doing these routine, monotonous activities outside of training because you don't get better in training. You get better outside of training. So there's that. And I think another thing that has recently come up is for these players to be referees. So little do people know that for soccer games to happen, you have to have referees. And it's part of the game. If we don't have a referee, that game does not count. You can play it, but it will not count. So we also have a referee assigner who is responsible for recruiting and training referees. And so we also offer opportunity for our youth, for either like 14 years or older. To get trained as a licensed referee, you will at that point be able to be an assistant referee, so all on the sidelines. So they will mainly call offside or out of bound or a foul, as opposed to center ref, which is where all the good stuff happens, right? They get to call all the good stuff. But as they progress, they can find themselves being a center ref at 15 or 16. And the money they make is nice. You can walk away, if you're refereeing a tournament, and walk away with some good amount of money. But, that's a small segment of the players will actually do that because, that's a whole nother side of things, being a referee and the challenges that come with that. But going back to the game itself, I think, with most sports, it offers a lot. And I think it also offers a lot for the parents as well, because they have to trust in their kid that, hey, we've traveled all this way. You've maybe traveled to San Diego. We're going to see you play. And then that goal's not scored. They missed that goal. And it's like, okay. Right? So it's a learning for everybody.
Accountability, tenacity, confidence. I think those are all great things that can definitely be learned on the field. And I think that's some great food for thought as well. While Vincent, Kyle, and I take a commercial break. When we come back, Vincent's going to tell us about what's on the horizon for East County Revolution FC, and we'll discuss the new sports complex in town as well. Stick around.
Today's episode of Clocked In with the Press is brought to you by our friends at Sip and Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip and Scoop started out as a food truck, serving coffee, hot cocoa, and desserts on the go, but the demand was so high that they had to open a shop at 234 Oak Street. Here at Clocked In, we love Sip and Scoop. They're just a few doors down from our offices, and we're there often enough that they know our names and orders. It's like Cheers, but better, because there's dessert. Try their cold brew coffee, or choose a latte or Americano for a classic coffee drink that can't be beat. And we haven't even talked about their breakfast sandwiches and avocado toast. Have I mentioned the root beer floats and the iced lemonades? Those are my personal favorites. Okay, obviously I could talk about food all day, but here's the point. You gotta go to Sip and Scoop. Visit them at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood, or have Sip and Scoop brought to you wherever you are by DoorDash. Having an event? Let Sip and Scoop cater it. Give them a call at 925-684-7710 to find out more.
All right, thank you very much to our sponsor. So, Vincent, we're getting back into this. Kind of tell us, what are the benefits of two clubs merging here?
Yeah, so again, it's more soccer for more players. We have the opportunity to field more programs, and again, getting into, more fields available, more coaches to bring them in. And I think, right now we don't know really what it's really going to ultimately mean. I mean, we all hope that, 5, 10, 12 years from now, oh my goodness, look at the now, that's what we hope, but we don't know. So each day we're endeavoring to do better than the last day.
And that's a great point. We're kind of at square one here for Revolution. So what's on the horizon? What does the 5-year plan look like?
Well, and again, there's been a lot of little things to take care of in this merger. The big things, we're talking about having the state of California recognize us as a nonprofit organization. There's the affiliation with the NorCal Premier Soccer League and our interactions with them. And then there's the structure among ourselves. So we've had to really do a lot of these little things that we didn't know that we had to think about, right? We even had to call in a lawyer to help us do some of the paperwork. Oh my gosh. I do not want to do that again. It's like doing your taxes, right? It's like, ugh. But for 5 years, what we are really hoping to do is, again, to grow our club in a sense that we are in higher levels of play. So in youth soccer, you've got, in this area, most of the clubs are all part of NorCal Premier. So this league, it covers most of Northern California. So you've got levels of play. So you've got bronze, silver, gold, state premier, and then you've got what's called National Premier League, NPL. And then after that, you have higher leagues than that. So we're aspiring to participate in higher and higher leagues and also keep it affordable. Recognize, if you go online now and you search, go down to the San Ramon and Pleasant area, the cost of the soccer is a lot more than what it is here, right? And we're proud of that, that we can field really competitive teams, give kids great experiences, but not at the same prices. So obviously that means that in this economy that there's things that have to give, right? So that's something that we are working on. But again, given our area, we want to be responsible, and we want as many kids to play.
How would you say awareness is for East County Revolution compared to, are people aware the two previous clubs merged to form it?
I would say yes. We tried very hard to get the word out. Even among the prior clubs, they knew it was coming. We had lots of communication in the prior two clubs. We now have a very active social media channels on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You know, among the other clubs in the area, they are aware of who we are and, you know, that we have merged. So within the soccer community, the awareness is there, right? What we are trying to do is get more people to play the game. We have an adult league, co-ed league. We want more people to play the game. Obviously, we want our main focus is in the youth. So we're looking for right now, like again, we said we're starting off our recreational season. For that, we have about 830 players, about 64 teams. And so between now and September, I think the number is 231 games will be played. And then we'll have playoffs and some All-Star games, what have you. It's all cool. So there's a lot of games to be played, right? So what we're trying to do is grow numbers, be more competitive, offer that complete pathway for players so that they are prepared to potentially play in college, right? So that's another big thing for most of the older players.
And what are you finding is the best way to draw in more people, draw in interest from people who aren't already playing soccer?
Well, I wish I knew that, because then, you know, I wouldn't be talking about certain numbers. We have a lot more numbers, and, you know, so that's something that that's a struggle. And I think most youth organizations have that same struggle, right? It usually starts with a small kernel of teams and you start growing from there. So for us, it is mainly about the product that we're putting on the field. And I always say that for our club, our main product is our coaches. Parents are paying for good training or superior training. And we also provide the fields and the organization to bring in to go into competitive games. So we need to focus on our coaches and what they're able to bring.
And with visibility and awareness being kind of the biggest challenge for growth, what would you say has been the biggest success story with the growth that you guys are already seeing? What are you most proud of? Yeah,
well, I think it started with us at tryouts, because there was, you know, like any endeavor, you have people, oh, that's a great idea, yeah. And there a lot of others like, oh, why? You know, I like what's happening right now, you know? So we had some detractors, and we still have detractors, right? Before tryouts, we had the separate clubs come together and train together. So that was fun to see. And then we had tryouts, right? And then we start seeing the first games being played with our new uniforms. And so we had to design all new uniforms. And I tell everybody, I am not the uniform person. I don't like to pick stuff out. No. But I just said, yes, that looks great. So seeing those new uniforms on the field, that's awesome, right? So we are on the way, right? But it is just one step of so many more steps to come. And again, it's how do we arrange ourselves so that we can show others that we are seeing success on the field? And with more success comes more people coming in who want to, oh, wow, we heard about Revolution. We want to get on board with that, right? So that's what we're endeavoring to do.
It's not really one big capital M milestone. It's a lot of smaller ones that build yourself up to that point. I think the uniforms are a great example in that regard, just because it does solidify it as this is a real thing now. This is a concrete thing we have.
Right. Because it's funny because I've become the person who is like, hey, how come I see Ajax or how come I see Impact? And I'm seeing it everywhere, right? And it's like it's like a fly. You keep pestering and it doesn't die. So it's been, and that's kind of the game itself. It's a lot of little moments that lead up to the goal, right? Unlike other sports where there's a deluge of points, in soccer, it's a 1-0 win is like, oh my gosh, that's great. And so for us, there's a lot of little things that go into making a soccer game happen. And I think also people don't realize that it does take a community to get these soccer games together. So for that parent who is saying, well, I just paid my money to register my kid, I'm done. Well, actually, we need you because it helps reduce the cost. Because if we didn't have volunteer board members or we didn't do fundraisers, which now I think we're hopefully able to do that, the cost goes up. So we're very mindful of everything we do. We're very mindful of how much is it costing us so that we're being true to our mission of making sure everyone can play the game.
If there are people that are listening that are interested in volunteering, what is it that they can do to help you out?
So our main ask, we're looking for a marketing director. So if you go on our website, you look up under club, you'll see the various positions. That's the main one, and that's a voting member on our board. And if anything, it's anyone who is willing to help, we will find something for you to do. And that's because, again, this takes a community. Even setting up goals, like for parents who come to the game, they're being asked, hey, before you sit down, you need to take out the goals and roll around, and can you put the flags up, right? So everyone's participating in that.
Do you find that having people participating in that way gets them to buy into it a little bit more and be even more passionate about it than just a parent sitting on the bleachers waiting to go home at the end of the day?
Yeah. Not only are the players happy about the win, but the parents and the extended family who are coming, who are participating and helping, it does. You'll find that many of these teams will do, bonding events. They'll go hang out somewhere and have food, pool party, do volunteer work. Not only is it bringing the cost down, but it's also bringing that particular team together, or in fact, bringing a club together.
And obviously a big part of recreational sports are the coaches. Kind of tell us a little bit about who you have coaching for the organization.
Well, so yeah, that's a whole new world over there, right? Because it starts off with, like I mentioned before, with our recreational program. That, hey, 10 games, parents are volunteering. We're saying we cannot do this program without you. So get a background check, be nice to kids, talk, and there's a safe sport whole program around that. And you'll find folks who have never coached before, who've played or not played, are coaching, right? And that's rec. Once you get into competitive soccer, then you are looking at coaches who are licensed. There's like two main organizations here in the U.S. who oversee licensing for coaches. They go from going online and filling out some forms to get the grassroots level all the way up to high level licenses, right? And so we have our director of coaching, Tom Giannocchio, who's high license, and we have our technical director, Mike Ransford, highly licensed. And so they've been in the game for years. They've seen it, and they've coached both girls and boys. They've coached the young kids. They've coached the older kids. So again, the director of coaching's role is to bring in those coaches, right? Again, we're challenged because of our registration, how much we bring in from our parents compared to some of the bigger clubs down the highway, down Highway 4. So, but what we do find is we have coaches who are passionate, who love the sport, right? And so that's where we are supporting them and continuing their education to ensure they've got the equipment, they've got the knowledge of the youth soccer world, and help dealing with the parents. because that's the other part of the role is, yes, how good are you at soccer, but also how good are you handling the parents? Because they're going to have a lot of questions, right? And they want it now. So there's that part.
We have the Youth Recreational League. We have the Youth Competitive League, which is a travel league as well, I believe. But you said there was also some adult leagues as well. I'd love to hear a little bit more about those.
Yeah, we have a adult co-ed league, and it's kind of on a par like for recreational league. We have referees who oversee the game, so it gives an opportunity for those who've played the sport continue to play the sport. I'm always amazed that and with soccer, and I think this happens with other sports too. You could continue playing the sport until you can't kick anymore, you know. So we have the opportunity, and then we also have what we call our academy or pre-academy, and these are just for the younger age groups. They're more structured sessions to teach the essential skills of soccer. We have soccer camps during the summer, but again, mainly we're known for our competitive and recreational programs.
So you've got whether they're looking to keep their kid busy for the summer or keep their dad busy for his retirement, you guys have something.
We've got something. Yes. And then for everybody who is in between, please come on over. We would love to have you volunteer and go from there. Yeah.
All right, so kind of tell us, I know a big thing that's been talked about in this community for a long time has been this possible sports complex that Brentwood's going to build. Can you kind of elaborate on how that will benefit your organization?
Right. So, in terms of that sports complex, and I think I mentioned before that most youth soccer clubs they need good fields. And I can't tell you how much I've learned about grass, the length of the grass. And so I want to give a shout out to the city of Brentwood on working with Sunset, because for the longest time we've had challenges with that field. It's too long, right? The grass is too long. And when you kick a soccer ball on long grass, the speed of the game goes down by magnitudes, right? So in grass fields, that's one thing. So with this new soccer complex, the intent is to build turf fields. So just like you see at the local high schools, playing on a turf field is a lot faster, right? And so it offers truly year-round playing, because I don't know, not that this rained a lot, but when it did, during the wintertime, it's okay, sorry guys, we got to close the field, no playing today, no training today. But when you have a turf field, hey, you are playing, doesn't matter, rain or shine. So the ability to have those, not one or several turf fields would allow the club to train in the wintertime, no matter the rain condition, right? It would allow them to get used to the speed of play, so that when they get to, oftentimes in the springtime, we find ourselves fielding games at the local high schools. That's not the first time. Whoa, when you kick that ball, it keeps going, right? As compared to on grass. It allows us also, when we hold tournaments, to have more capacity for more games. So we're looking forward to it. I mean, we really are. I mean, it's exciting news. I think, for my daughter, she's like, great, but when am I going to see it? I'm probably going to be in college by the time it gets around. But for those who's up and coming, again, this club is not meant just for this year, next year. We're setting ourselves up for the multiple years to come. And that sports complex is part of that. And, for the city of Brentwood to kind of invest in that, and they're investing in the youth, it's just awesome.
You guys have started this organization or merged the two. Is it kind of what you thought it was going to be? I know you said you talked a little bit about the little things.
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't think that we were in jeopardy of not happening. Once we first had those conversations in July through October, okay, yeah, this is going to happen. I use the analogy of getting married. You just don't know, right? I didn't know that person snored, So we were fighting about each other, as board members. We were fighting about our strengths and our weaknesses, and we're learning from that. And at the same time, it's a leap of faith. It's a leap of faith for the players, because especially for the older players. When I say older players, I'm more talking about the high school age kids. When they have opportunities to go down Highway 4 or go down Byron, there are other clubs who are playing high-level soccer. They can go right now and play in those high-level leagues, and the cost will be a lot more, right? So we had to convince a lot of those kids that, hey, there's something here for you, right? For some of the coaches, we're used to a certain way. Well, this is the revolution way, right? So they're having to take a leap of faith. And especially for us on the board, because it is that leap of faith that when you mentioned what is the benefit of the merger, on paper, we think, okay, here's what we're going to, and what we actually ended up saying is, on paper, we thought we were going to have X number of players. Yep, we got two clubs, we're going to have X number of players. Well, what happened was it was less than that. Now what, right? Oh, that's it, we're done. Pack it up, no, we're not. And what we had to realize in this season is it's like a startup company. We've got a new brand, new organization, but people still see some of the old parts of the old clubs, right? And so it's that leap of faith that, yes, we realize where we are right now, but where we're headed is awesome, right? And so it's not something that happens overnight. And I think that's really the key here is that, we have this desire to have this awesome soccer club, but that's not an overnight endeavor. It takes a lot of hard work every day, the struggles of, oh, that didn't work, or we saw that kid leave. Oh man, if only we had done this. But we had to kind of just look within and just let's keep going, right? And so, when I talk to other board members, we are constantly looking what can we do, right? But I think everyone would say that this was the right thing to do.
And like anything else, there's a certain degree of trial and error, but every time you come back a little bit better, a little bit stronger.
Yeah. And the challenge there is that, sometimes you get it wrong, and you have people who are very vocal about when you get it wrong, like our parents. And that's not going to work. So again, not that we have the right solution every time, but what we are trying to put forth, the product we're trying to put on the field is something that we're constantly evolving, right? And, it takes a good relationship between the coach and the players to kind of see that on the field. It takes that parent to see, wow, I see that what's happening with my child among the other kids on the team. And it takes us on the board to say, wow, we're seeing all these teams coming together and doing these great things. How do we keep it going, right? And so for me, in my role as president, I see it as just continuing to press the pedal. We got to keep moving forward. We can't think about what happened last year or last month. And, what are we doing that we can just continue doing better?
Earlier in the interview, I'd asked you what life lessons kids could learn from being part of soccer. And I want to flip that and ask you the same question. What have you learned as the president of the organization through the merger, just as a parent with a kid in soccer? What life lessons have you learned?
Yeah. So, I've been in management for about 14 years. So I've had opportunities to lead teams. I think I thought I knew how to lead teams or knew what it was about and dealing with people. But when I got to the board, again, it's just a different speed. And, you'll find yourself in situations where it's dealing with project management, conflict resolution, marketing, ticketing, computers, sales, or like say registration of kids, uniform design, which again, that's not me. I'm glad we have some really good people who can do that. But I think, for me, I've learned a lot that one thing, it's funny that you find that when it comes to the players and the coaches, they're given these schedules. So the league will say, all right, for the fall league, just the schedules came out for fall league, and you've got 10 games. And so sometimes something happens. You can't play that game on that time. So you have to flex. And so when it happens, and I've served as a team manager. So another role for parents is to serve on the team as a team manager to help do all the logistics of scheduling the game. Well, we got to the field and there were people on the field. In fact, there was a football team or teams on the field. And we're like, what happened, right? And so we had another team come from another, I think it was Manteca. I mean, it was like a long way. And we're like, oh, crap. And what are we going to do? So we end up playing another field, and I don't think that one counted. We had to coerce them to like, okay, if we give you the bye and we give you the points, we just want to play, right? So dealing with that and just knowing that you're going to find a way to make it happen, because at the end of the day, you're wanting those kids to enjoy the game. Did we get to play, right? So a lot of that goes back to, and another thing is like, it's for the kids. And it's kind of like I've always used that over the years. It's funny, but it is true. But then you have to kind of take a sigh. You're like, okay, it's for the kids. Okay, we can do this. All right. But I've learned a lot during this time, and I think it actually translated to my business endeavors. And I like it. It's been a good ride.
Just learning to roll with the punches. I like it, and I can't think of a better way to end it. Before we wrap up, Vincent, is there anything you feel we haven't touched base on?
No, I think we've covered a lot of territory here, and again, I think for this community, there's something to be said about two organizations who were at opposite ends of the town, right? Now coming together to play the game of soccer and to offer all different programs. And one thing I didn't mention, that we do offer scholarships to those who are in need. We do have a needs-based program for that, and we definitely need to find new opportunities for fundraising. So looking for sponsors to help us with that. And always looking for new coaches, new referees. Go to our website. We'd love to have new referees. But I think if anything here for this community, knowing that there is a lot of people who are invested in these teams and in this game. And it's interesting when you drive by a field or walk by a field and you hear some whistle blowing and kids running around and parents are hooting and hollering, that's a community unto itself that's here in Brentwood, right? That is vibrant, that is supportive, and you have a diversity of people. You have the whole spectrum playing the sport, and then that's the fun part. And so to see that come together and continuing to grow, that's awesome.
Let's plug some of those sites for anybody that's at home listening. What's the website and what are those social media handles where they can find more info about you guys?
Yeah, certainly. So if you go to our website at revolutionfc.org, we're also on Facebook at East County Revolution Football Club, or Twitter, EC Revolution FC1, or Instagram at EC Revolution FC.
All right, that's our interview, folks. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Clocked in with the Press. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in, and we look forward to speaking with you in future episodes. I'd like to thank Vincent and Kyle for taking the time to join me this week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you.
And I'd also like to thank you, the listeners. If you'd like to read more news stories out of East Contra Costa, hit up our website, www.thepress.net, or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok at thepress_net. Be sure to tune in this Friday for your local news and sports highlights, and be sure to rate us on whatever platform you're listening on. Have an idea for a future guest? Email podcasts@brentwoodpress.com. That's my spiel. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again soon. This is Jake.
And Kyle.
And Vincent.
Clocking out.
Thanks again to this week's sponsor, Sip and Scoop. Remember that feeling of hearing the ice cream truck coming down the street as a kid? Bring back that feeling by visiting Sip and Scoop. They started out as a truck too, and now they have a brick and mortar shop right here in Brentwood, so you don't have to chase them down the block. Sip and Scoop has all kinds of high-quality desserts to satisfy any sweet tooth. Gelato, root beer floats, and iced coffees are just a few of my favorites. And the whole menu is available to go on DoorDash. Stop by their shop in downtown Brentwood and get your scoop on.